Welcome to Ronde. Now, I'm going to exercise a lot of patience in this vlog today because of various reasons I'm going to set up right now, and I know they're going to happen when I get inside the park. If you've watched my Marineland vlog, you've seen that I'm not shy to conflict, and I will speak my mind on any subject. And this park is pretty notorious for having one of the, let's say, most difficult client base that you can get. I was here yesterday just to do a preview of the changes and got a lot of rides in actually. So the majority of my day today will be spent just reviewing the park and just giving you some insights into my feeling about it. It is yet again another hot day, so deal with the sweat meter on me. Because it's going to be pretty high, and I'm not going to be squinting. I'm going to have to get some glasses because, yeah, it's a sweltering day here in Montreal. So, yeah, this park, let's just say it is number one for the most difficult types of people that come here. Just yesterday on two separate trains and two separate rides, there were two separate kids that thought it was funny to spit in the air during the train ride on a coaster to see if it would splatter on people behind them. So that's just a mild insight in what you can expect at this park. That being said as well, I'm going to cover a lot of the reasons why you should come here, as I always try to retain a positive spin. There's a lot of history to this park. It used to be the Expo 67 entertainment complex, so there's a lot of history to the buildings and stuff, and we're going to see sort of hints of that scattered throughout the park. Essentially, not much got changed from those over 50 years ago now, when this park was originally established. But it is a Six Flags park now, so they have changed a lot in the intervening years. And you also have two B&Ms, one of which is the original first B&M ever in Canada, and also one of the top 5 coasters in the country. So you do have a reason to come here if you are an enthusiast. If you're just out for a day out in Montreal, I'll show you some reasons why you should come here as well. They do have a couple of real interesting areas. They have a lot of clone coasters here. They have a pretty good dark coaster, which we'll cover later as well. But yeah, this day is not going to be without conflict. I can just anticipate that. So yeah, here we go. We're going into La Ronde. We're going to face the music and try to enjoy our day as best as possible. Okay, so we're all geared up here, and we're inside the park. The security is a little bit of a wait, but as you can see, it's not too busy once you get inside. The Quebecois culture, they like to fight, they like racing, they like the extremes of life, and this park is all about the extremes. I like to nickname this park the dive bar of theme parks because it's pretty much exactly that. It's kind of a little bit beaten down. There's not much accoutrements to enjoy as far as decorum and that being the best of the best in the world. In fact, it's anything but that. We're not talking carnival level type of decor, but you'll see for yourself. While nothing near the level of, say, a Disney experience, I would say, though, that the children's area in this park is well situated and well made up. It's got some nice rides. It's pretty empty because it's still a school day today. Yeah, it's really kind of like a pretty little area. It almost feels separate to the rest of the park the way it's set up. It is the most forested and tree-lined area of the park. So yeah, it's got a really nice feel to it. It's really grown into itself, whereas you'll see the rest of the park has kind of got that, amusement park type of atmosphere. Whereas here, we definitely have a theme park in the middle of an amusement park in a way. Being at an amusement park on my own, I don't think it's a really good idea to be going on kiddie rides on my own. That's just a mandate that I've set for myself anytime I'm at a park alone. I don't know. I think that just makes sense, reasonable sense. But yeah, again, the theming of this area, I just love how like uniform it is, and it's neatly packed in. The pathways kind of lead to that you don't really know where you're gonna go, because it's kind of like a little bit of a mini maze, almost like a hedge maze here. So it's really, really cool. That being said, I'm not a kid anymore, so I can't give you a genuine review on how kids would interpret this area, or at least appreciate this area, but for me it's kind of cool. Okay, I'm gonna make an exception now because I didn't notice that animatronic cow on Choo Choo, which if I can get on it, I'm gonna try this ride because I love an animatronic cow, as I think that this is the most busiest attraction here in the kids area. So let's do a little Choo Choo if I can. So that's a no, you can't get on without a kid, so next time I'm gonna abduct a kid to get on the ride because I want to get on it. It's one of the original rides, I think, that came here in 1967, so I guess it makes sense if they got a line, they gotta honor the fact that the kids are here to ride the ride over me, but I'm gonna get an encounter with that cow at some point, so we'll see. Annoying. I want to get on that train. I'm gonna have to bribe someone. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get on that damn train. So we're just going through the McDonald's now. To be honest with you, the last time that I was here, it was quite busy, especially this restaurant. It was packed, and I haven't actually done a few credits here because each time I've come, the higher throughput rides tend to have shorter lines, whereas the ones that take a little bit of time and have a lower throughput have got extensive lines. For example, the good old-fashioned Wild Mouse behind me. Now, this one looks actually pretty intense, so I definitely want to give it a shot, but as it's a family-friendly ride, it tends to get a fairly big lineup as compared to some of the other rides in this park. So thus, I've not been on it yet. But I'm gonna crack that nut today. Maybe not right now, but I will share some footage of it nonetheless. Another boomerang. The Boomerang, as a matter of fact. So this is actually the first Vekoma boomerang that was located in Canada, because the bat at Canada's Wonderland did not debut till 3 years later. This ride came out in 1984, which, if any of you know, is actually the year that the first Boomerang actually was launched. This is, I believe, the second one ever in the world that actually was operational. So it has some history behind it, and it's actually been fairly well maintained over the years too. It's very clean around here in this section. Now this part of the park is pretty sparse. If you go down in this direction, there's an old disused building here from the old expo days, which I still to this day don't know what exactly it was for. It looks like it was for a gondola ride that once existed here, but the base of it is still used as an administrative office. But yeah, enough about the behind the scenes stuff. This is just to the right of the entrance as you come. If you want to skip the Kiddieland area and you want to skip if you want to skip the main thoroughfare that takes you to the back of the park, you're probably coming here to ride Goliath anyway, so you're probably just going to jet past this, but you'll see it. Super Ménage is right behind me too, which is another notorious coaster at this park for questions about why it exists. So you've got two Vekomas right next to each other. That ride came out in 1981, but more on that later. We're gonna go on Le Boomerang now. I don't believe I've been on it before. It usually has a pretty big line, but today that is not the case. So I'm gonna crack the Le Boomerang nut. Hopefully not literally, but we'll see. So that might have been an appropriate nickname for it. If you are over 6 feet, I'm exactly 6 feet tall, maybe 6.5 with the right size heels. But besides the point, the horse collar restraints, I don't know what it is. Like, the bat doesn't really have this situation, but on this particular ride, the horse collars are really tight on my shoulders. So I felt pretty trapped in the train when I was riding it. I did get a front seat ride. That being said, it wasn't terribly rough as I was expecting. So it's not terrible for a Boomerang, but it is a Boomerang. What else can you really say? Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I really should say about it, is that just some mild discomfort there. If you're like 6'2", 6'3", you're probably not going to be able to get on this ride, because it's you'll get on it, but you're going to be really like sandwiched in the seat, and it's not comfortable. There's no padding on the seat or anything like that. It's pretty rough stuff. So Ronde is a kind of a no frills park to begin with, and Le Boomerang, Le Boom All Nut is no exception to that. Larsen Fireball, the ubiquitous Larsen Fireball that Six Flags just seems to be in love with lately, is the first that I've ever done, and also new for 2019 here at Ronde. Now, despite the fact that this ride is pretty familiar with another design that I've seen in carnival attractions, it's a pretty decent thrill ride. It's a good addition for what it is. If you're going to just do a flat ride in the park, it's not a bad idea to have something like this, because it's really family friendly and sort of gets that thrill quotient up amongst younger thrill seekers. Speaking of which, I did ride the ride with two young girls that are here on a school trip. Slightly embarrassing. Like, we had a great chat, but they speak 3 languages. I'm only at like 1.5. I do speak a bit of French, but I'm not really that comprehensive on it. I'm hoping that over the next couple of visits that I come to this park, I'm going to be at the level that I want to be, but that's another aside. So maybe my vlog from here next year will be en français. Here's hoping. So I just got off of Manitou. The most intense of these that I've ever been on is in South Korea, Gyeongju World. So if you want a review of like one of the most intense flat rides that I've ever done, that's the park. Because the cycle that they had on there, I was the only person on it, and it was extreme. This one, pretty tame, to be honest. I'm not really. I think that it was on a different cycle last year, but this one it just kind of swung and spun, and then you were done. But I will say though, the ride up there, it's just one girl, and she's running the show. Like, she's full of enthusiasm, chats with you as you're getting on, gives you all your necessary warnings, and yeah, she gets top marks as far as park ops are concerned. Very efficient, well done. To be honest, I'm having a pretty good day so far. I'm just sort of stuck in this one corner of the park that's very noisy, so I'm coming out of it now, going back to the main entrance to do the other side of the park now. the more intense section, which I had some negative experiences in yesterday. So who knows? Yeah, it's a different day, different people. Might be a little bit different as far as what I experienced in Ronde today. So yeah, let's carry on our day. We've done the kids area. I'm still bitter. It's behind me. I want to get in there and I want to try that damn train ride, but I'm not going to be able to do it, at least until later today. So now we're going to go and try some of the major rides that thrill seekers are interested in this park, including the 2 B&Ms and of course Les Monstres, the major portion of the park and the reason why you mostly would come here. Washroom review time. Now this is the monorail station, the disused monorail station, unfortunately for Edmonton, the base of which has some washrooms in it. So these have been here for 50 years. They've been well maintained. You can also buy things in there. They've got vending machines. It's kind of unusual. Feels a bit Vegas-y to me. But all things considered, not so bad, considering in this location on the other side of the park by the Dragon at the other main entrance. The washrooms there, however, they need a little bit of an upkeep, kind of dirty, not really a big fan. So I think that if I'm going to use a bathroom, I'm coming here. That being said, you still should do your business outside of Ronde because you're going to encounter some displeasantness if you're stuck here having to do some displeasant type of activity. So yeah, that's my main tip from the washroom aspect here at Ronde. Part of the experience of being here at Ronde, if you're into, say, architecture or history, is the overall plan of this park, because it is based where the original Expo 67 site was. Expo 67 is considered one of the best ever expos ever put together, and at the time it was at the cusp of like a revolutionary advancements in amusement rides. Aerodynamics had a lot of rides debut here, a showcase for their technologies. And right behind me here we have the original Alcan dolphin pool. Another thing that seems to be a thing about Ronde is advertising. So Alcan being a aluminum company, they were responsible for this building being created. A couple of years, maybe 10, 15 years ago, that was a video game arcade, and now it's just sitting disused, which is kind of unfortunate. I'd like to see them do something with the building itself. You have improvements like this. Obviously, Le Vampire, which is now 17 years old, but it was really the original main statement. It's getting hot. It was the original main statement that this park was here to stay and that they were here. They intended to bring it into the modern age as far as amusement parks are concerned. That's not really the feel I get from this building, unfortunately, behind me, as it is kind of just been sitting here in disrepair. The city of Montreal actually owns this land, and they have a unique lease with Ronde, which runs to 2056, which, without using the weird term for it, it involves the company constantly providing changes and improvements to the park. So that's part of what they have to do. And I think that inherently they have to leave some of the original Expo 67 buildings intact. So that's why you have a building like this behind me that's still here. And you also have, you'll notice throughout the vlog, that the original monorail and the stations are here despite it being disused for many, many, many years. I'd like to see that get running again. It'd be kind of cool. Give a really interesting perspective of the park if it was running still, but it's so old I don't think they can really get it back up and running again. So I'm off to do my next couple of rides in this other section of the park. Vertigo right behind me, which is another newer investment in the last couple of years. And then you also have the Vampire here too. So I'm gonna get on those and I'm gonna give you a little quick review after that. Trains today because every time I try to film this review there's another train going by. As you might be able to hear, you might not, but I just got off of the Perla 2003, which isn't that new at all. It's 16 years ago. Yeah, it's one thing about the rides here though is that half of them don't have the seat belt, the additional seat belt for their horse collar restraint. So on that particular ride, when you're hanging upside down, the whole thing I'm thinking of is if this thing just suddenly loosened, then we're all done for, which is kind of adds a scary element to the ride that you don't get in many amusement parks. Certainly not Six Flags in the States, that's for sure. Also formerly on this location was an Intamin stand-up coaster, which was pretty notorious, which is long gone. I have been on it back in the day, and it was painful. It was one of the worst roller coasters I've ever been on in my life, without question. So I don't really miss it, other than the fact that they could almost have 10 credits here if it still existed. And I do have a bit of a rant about those older rides. It's kind of like Carowinds Vortex, very similar experience, although Carowinds Vortex is a little bit longer of a layout. But that being said, it's gone, so there's no point in really talking about it. Another thing I wanted to point out about this park though too is that being that it is in the middle of the river on an island that's man-made, the infrastructure here I think takes a really bad beating over the winter years, or the winter time, because at the same time you've got these situations where the entire area is probably covered in ice, and it's very, the winters in Montreal are very challenging and notoriously cold and windy. So the point being that I think that like these fences and just the ride structures themselves, the paint and all that kind of stuff, they really need to be maintained on a yearly basis, because I think it just takes a thrashing in the winter months. And because of that, the park kind of looks a little underkept, which I don't think it really is fault of operations. It's just that the expense of keeping it looking fresh and new would be just so exorbitant that they just can't keep up with that. So fair play to them. I'm not going to really judge the park on that. But as I said, I'm having a good day today, so yeah, let's continue on. In 2002, Ronde announced one of the most exciting events in Canadian coaster history. We were finally gonna get a B&M. That being said, it was a Batman clone, but that's fine because at the end of the day, we did not have a single B&M in the country. We are a G7 nation, but we didn't even have a B&M. What is that about? Well, Ronde changed that. I was so excited about the announcement of this ride, and I also had not been on a Batman clone yet at the time of which this ride was open. It took me more than 10 years to get here to ride it, unfortunately. And then since Wonderland, Canada's Wonderland has opened 3, and Ronde has opened another, which is Goliath, which is was the time that I actually got to ride this ride as well. So we're gonna do Le Vampire. This section of the park seems to be overrun with a lot more activity and school trips and stuff like that. So I'm gonna do some of the flats in this area a little bit later. I'm going to give you my takeaway from Le Vampire. It is on 2 trains, so they're running pretty well. I did do a couple rides on it yesterday. One thing about this park, when you're approaching it, because it's not surrounded by anything, you can hear that B&M roar from afar, and if you know it and you're familiar with it, it really gets you excited to get in here. So yeah, that familiar haunting sound of the B&M, I don't know if it's haunting, it's exciting. Also to note, the queue line for Le Vampire has grown into this like really lush sort of natural landscape, as you can see around me. At least on this side, as we get over to it, there is a much more sketchier side. That being said, this frickin' bird behind me pegged me just like it did just there. Ah! I'm gonna get that frickin' bird. It's a war here at Le Vampire. It's a war of birds. in emphasis of that, I would say that the front is definitely the ride that you should be waiting for on this. It's the best experience that you're going to get. The back gives you that traditional, the fastest part, or the fastest ride that you can get on the train, but the view, you want the view on an inverted, and the view on this one is pretty spectacular, given that you got a lot to see with the lake, or sorry, the river that surrounds us, and it's just, yeah, it's really kind of the best part of the ride to be, or best part of the train to be riding. I can't even get my words together, because the real reason that I did a second trip is because of that damn bird. I've been watching and seeing if it's picking on anyone else, and it has, but yeah, there was a little bit of an incident. I'm gonna calm down, I'm gonna let the bird go. It's only protecting its young, but I didn't do anything wrong. Anyway, moving on. The situation with this ride, it's an excellent addition for this park. Revolutionary, really. It brought like the focus for a brief time on Ronde versus Canada's Wonderland, because Ronde had really stocked up on their B&Ms before Wonderland kind of caught up based on their purchase by Cedar Fair. So, you know, most people have ridden this ride, so it's not any different than any of the other Batman clones that are out there. For what it is, it packs a solid punch, five inversions, a great first drop. I do like this section behind me though, because it's just a twisted spaghetti mess of inversions and insanity, as versus like a ride like Raptor, where everything is kind of spaced out and you can kind of get ready for what's coming. This ride, it just really pushes you into those elements, and you don't even know where you're going until you finally hit that brake run. And there's no mid-course brake on this ride either, which makes it really, just for a speed factor, we really push through every inversion and all the elements at a speed that I'm very happy with. It is so loud though. It's like one of the loudest B&Ms that I probably have ever encountered. Now, Raptor has that distinctive roar, but I don't know, I just feel that this ride has just got a little bit more to it. Maybe because there's no sand in the supports and the track itself to dampen the overall roar. I don't really want that. I like the way this ride sounds. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, so Vampire, a really good, solid coaster, still running relatively well. Yesterday I thought it was a bit rickety and rough around the edges, but maybe that was one of the trains versus the other. They're running two trains right now, which means it's just essentially, it's a walk-on almost to whatever seat you want on the ride. And in the station you do get to choose at least, which is nice. But yeah, Vampire is definitely one of the best coasters in Canada that you can ride. I don't think that's just by default because it's a B&M, but we don't really have that many huge thrill coasters in Canada, and this was kind of the first one. So yeah, I'm gonna give a generally good review of Le Vampire. It's definitely a ride that if you haven't been on one of these clones before, you definitely need to get on it, especially if you've only been on a Vekoma inverted, which for some strange reason this park also has. I don't really get it, but yeah, we've got a B&M invert and a Vekoma invert in the same park. Probably maybe the only park in the world that has that. Doesn't really make sense to me. And the Vekoma invert's theming is better than Le Vampire. It's just a weird situation. But yeah, Le Vampire, one of the three best rides in Ronde. Okay, I've come over to a more secluded and quiet section of the park. Actually, it's just right next to that building that I was pointing out, the Dolphin Aquarium, earlier. Because I just wanted to point out one of the frustrations about people that come to visit this park, about how it's designed. And I've already done about 2/3 of it so far, so I'm doing pretty good. It's only been less than 3 hours that I've been here. Just under 3 hours that I've been here. I've already got 2 rides on Vampire. I've done 4 of the credits, and I'm going to go to the back end of the park right now to just show you exactly what that entails. So as you can see, we're going to have a look at this map here. So the map of the park, this is where you've come in, and my original section that I originally explored, which is the kids area and the wet rides, if you want to call them, or water rides, are located in this section here, as is the Wild Mouse or bobsleigh coaster. You've got Le Boomerang, you got Les Super Ménages, all the chaos and stuff that I did earlier. les superménages, the monstres. So we came around this way and then back through here. This is where we are currently, and the vampire is over here. So the sections don't really have a name for them. They're just basically set up as attractions. But the problem is that you have this giant lake area right in the center of the park, and there's no way, when you hit Le Vampire, you're basically at the terminus of where you can go on the north side of the park, because there is no pathway that joins these two areas. This is the official, parking lot entrance, which is actually nicer than the main entrance for some reason. It's well marked and just like looks a little bit more fresh than say the front entrance does. But it's not designed in a loop, so once you're over on this side, which I am now, you've got to walk all the way back to the front entrance and then back through all the way to the back to get to Goliath, which is pretty much probably the reason why you're here. It's a very unusual setup. There is a fireworks display that they do yearly that occurs here, and it's actually very impressive. If you are here at that time, you definitely should check it out. But yeah, there is no way to get from A to B on this side. It seems like a simple pathway would have made sense, but they must have their reasons for why they haven't joined the two. I'm going to go over to the Ferris wheel area later and probably go on it and check it out. They have their reasons, I'm sure, because otherwise it would make sense to have the traffic move in a continuous circular motion around the park. It'd be much more convenient, but unfortunately that's just not the case here at Ronde. Section of Ronde, which is basically the first themed area that you hit, and maybe the only real themed area other than the kids zone in the entire park, is original to this site from 1967 when it was first set up. So it's I have a suggestion, if anybody from Ronde is watching this, that this area would be amazing for a ghost train ride of some sort in the buildings that are above all the restaurants and stuff. They may be protected listed buildings, I'm not so sure. Also, when I said that this is the dive bar of amusement parks, this amusement park in this area, or in this section, has the ultimate dive bar that I've ever been to, which I'm going to go into right now and have a bit of a break before I carry on my day through the back of the park. All these kids are now getting out of here because I think that their trip day is over. It's getting on to 3:30. So as this park clears out, I'll be able to film a batch. As this park clears out, I'll be able to film vlog portions that aren't interrupted, which I'm looking forward to. It hasn't been too bad today, though, to be honest with you. I think people are getting used to this stuff going on in amusement parks now. I am at the center of the sun, so I need to get a refreshment. I am dying out here. So as mentioned, one of my favorite dive bars in theme parks. Now we're outside on the patio on the second level that overlooks the entire section of Fort Edmonton, which is fantastic. I'm a little bit wary right now because I swear that bird has followed me from the vampire and is now just casing this place, but I think it's a different bird. It's just, I don't know. It's here. So I'm going to enjoy this beer. It's Coors Light. It is what it is. There is actually premium brands and craft beers available here as well. Just for context, it cost $9.50 plus tax, so basically $11 Canadian for this, a little bit on the edge. It cost $9.50 for this beer, full pint, 20 ounces, Canadian size. Which is it's a pretty fantastic deal considering that just to get a bottle of water here costs $4.75, which is exorbitant. So just for a product that normally would cost a quarter of a beer, you can get a beer for a regular price here at Ronde. So not the best for hydration, but I have yet to find a water fountain here. So it seems like they have sort of created a catch-22 where if you want hydration, you're going to need to pay for it. But I'm going to enjoy my beer, I'm going to relax, and I'm going to get in the rest of my day. As you pass Fort Edmonton, heading straight down the main thoroughfare of the park, you hit this section, which is the water-based section, or water-focused section of the park. I don't really know the name of it. I don't think it has an actual name. But you have Toboggan Nordique located here, but you also have the Splash Battle right behind me, which actually was a very fun ride that I did last summer when we visited. It's pretty simple, but it's people are really into it here, so it's all about the competition. Lots of screams as well. And then of course you have the giant Le Splash behind me as well. So yeah, this is the water-ish area. I don't really know what else to call it, because it does say Aqua Zone for the kids over here. But everything's kind of mashed together. It's kind of like a graduation from the kids area, which happens to be just to the right of here. And then as you get to the main part of the amusement area for the adult rides, they slowly sort of merge from kids rides to family-friendly rides, and then more intense rides on the other side of the park. So it's well situated. You're gonna avoid those block bombers. You gotta keep spinning around, and that's how you do it. Finished the Perla Zigzag here. The toboggan. I don't think I'll be going on that again. Just because of the abrasive pop that's being played around this attraction. I've heard enough Drake, and I've heard enough Ariana Grande to suit me for a lifetime just around here. So we're getting out of here. Moving on. Ride experience. It's pretty tame, to be honest with you. They really picked up speed towards the end, but it's trimmed all throughout. I thought it was going to be one of the better wild mouses that I've ridden, but unfortunately, the Fly at Wonderland is definitely topping it when it comes to that. So, yeah, that's a one-rider, if anything, for if you're coming to this park, because it's the longest line other than Les Monstres that we got here. So I would avoid it if you need to. Super Ménage, or whatever it's called. The Super Ménage, the super ride. Used to be known as the corkscrew. It should still be known as the corkscrew in an amusement park that has 2 B&Ms and Les Monstres right next to it. That's the super ride. That's been the super ride here for many, many years. So yeah, it's a Vekoma MK1200. It is a very weird layout. It just basically does a corkscrew on a very short hill of like 40 feet or so. And despite all of that, in a pretty sparse park, it's got a pretty big line for, to be honest with you, the reason why that is because the operations on this coaster are pretty sketchy. This was the coaster that set off my day yesterday because there was kids in the front. I waited in the line. There was no wait yesterday. I walked on. I wanted the front seat. They let some people in the front of the train re-ride, which was kind of unusual despite the fact that I wanted that front seat. And yeah, they kind of take a lot of time to disembark and all that stuff. This is a very weird ride that doesn't need to be here. It really just needs to be torn out. Again, much like a lot of Ronde attractions, like a Nordique toboggan, it doesn't even have like footings in it. It's just basically been laid on a plat of land that has poured concrete. So very unusual log flume that used to be here, the aerodynamics log flume. The seats in the waiting area are the old log flume cars, so kind of bittersweet to see that. Good to see that they're still around, but at the same time I'd rather see that ride still open, but understandably it couldn't be because it's gone beyond its shelf life. So again, if you're skipping stuff, Super Ménage is one of them. It was pretty rough. There's nothing exciting about it. Corkscrews are like probably one of the most underwhelming elements on a roller coaster these days. But for some reason, people here love it. I do not know why. But yeah, I'm moving on. I'm not even gonna ride it today. Like I said, I got my ride in yesterday. The whole spitting thing is the classic annoying kid in the front of the car, or front of the train, spitting into the air, trying to hit people behind him. If the laws weren't what they are nowadays, I would take care of that situation in a different way. Now we are arriving at the back of the park, where one of the classics is located, which is Les Monstres. It has the biggest weight of any of the attractions in the park right now. Yesterday I rode it at the end of the day twice, and it's looking like right now it's got probably, I'd say, a 20 to 25 minute wait. The reason why that is because they're only running one train on Les Monstres, and that's the red train, which would be the left track. Last year I did the right side track, which was originally, I guess, known as the blue track, but now it's a yellow train that's on that track. They also have taken away one of the cars of the train. It used to have 6 cars, and it only has 5 now. Because of that, one train service, this line is pretty long. So I'm going to take a pass on it for now. I will come back later in the day when I know it's going to clear out right at the end, and I'll get another ride on it. It's running pretty smoothly this year, to be honest. They might have done some minor retracking work. It's not the smoothest wooden coaster in the world. It is the highest double track coaster in the world, has that claim to fame, but the initial drop, or the first drop, is terrible. It's like on a gradient at about like 40 degrees, which is almost like lift hill height. There are B&M dive coasters with, lift hills that are way steeper than that. So yeah, it's a bit of an underwhelming experience. Anyway, moving on, we're going to the deep nitty-gritty part of the park. All the kids are leaving. Things will open up a bit now. which is probably the most unique flat ride in this park. It was all right. It's no Talacan at Fantasyland, but what's going to compare to that, really? It's not the same type of ride, obviously, but sort of similar in design, but this one has two arms that separate in their trajectory or the way that they move, so that way the car actually starts to go in this weird side-by-side motion, as you just saw. But yeah, thrill level was kind of all right, but it wasn't really like anything crazy. Didn't blow my mind, but a good addition. It's way better than the Mondial at Wonderland, known as Shivering Timbers, which is got to be one of the most boring rides I've ever ridden. So yeah, that's a pretty good ride. Not the best in the park, but it'll do. So one thing I will say about this back section of the park is that it's kind of set up for a year-round haunt situation. And I'm hoping to get back here actually for their haunt event, because I'm a big fan of haunt attractions, and apparently the ones here are pretty good. They kind of have a higher standard than, say, most parks in North America as far as their scares are concerned. I think in Montreal, thus you have this set up year-round. I think it's only open on weekends, however, if it is still going, because I did hear a rumor that this is something that they do year-round when they can, but obviously there's actors involved in that, so the park needs to be busy, and a Tuesday in mid-June is just not going to do it for that. Ooh, there they go. Got lots of gulls here. This area of the park is the prettiest as far as the thrill ride portions are concerned. It's just very quaint. Like I said, I do prefer this entrance, which is the parking lot entrance behind me, versus the main entrance to the park. I just feel like this is the part of the park that actually feels like a theme park to me, versus the other more central area that is just sort of like a midway and has that kind of feel. I was going to go on this Ferris wheel, but for some reason there's a minimum of 2 people per gondola. I don't want to ride it with anybody else really, so I'm not going to bother. We're getting into that portion of Laurent where I start to get annoyed by some of the operations here. Really, they just basically told me to go because there's 4 girls on the car that I was waiting for. They all looked at me with that look of like, oh my god, you're gonna get on. But don't worry, I'm not getting on. You can have your Ferris wheel. I'm moving on. I'll probably be moving on from this park very soon, because I've been on Ferris wheels on my own before, in Japan and other places, and it doesn't seem to be a issue. It doesn't seem to be a big issue. I'm gonna go on Dragon now. Hopefully I can get on without any complications, but we'll update you on that in a moment. It is an Intamin family coaster built into this structure, which on the other side is just aluminum siding, and on this side is actually themed to the village area. It's actually a pretty cool ride. I do have an on-ride POV that you get to see from last night that I will throw in right now. someone wiser than myself can explain why, when you already 7 years earlier put in a B&M invert that you bought a Vekoma SLC in 2010 and put it in the same park. I don't understand. Now, Endor, the Attack, whatever it's called, it's better themed than Vampire, which is weird, but this is not a good ride. Why did you put it here? Like, there's one just 6 hours down the road at Canada's Wonderland. There's also one at Darien Lake, an hour and a half from there. This is the most ubiquitous roller coaster pretty much in the world. Why would you build it? I don't understand. They must have got a deal or something, but it just does not, it beguiles me why this actually was put here. There's nothing special about it. The only thing that's cool is that its color scheme is kind of unique and fits in well with the park, but yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Bigging up this section of the park, the village, because of how quaint it is. But having just gotten off of Ronde or Endor, L'Attack, or whatever it's called, there's a substantial story behind the ride, but again, like I said, there's no point to it. So there's not even a point in reviewing this coaster, other than it being like somewhat smoother than some of the SLCs that I've been on, but no point. No point. There's literally like a handful of coasters here that if you had a limited time, you might as well just go ride the B&Ms, get on Les Monstres if it's open, and yeah, get out of this park, because there's not really much else on offer that's of like major thrills. That being said, so I've been here 2 days now in a row, and it's getting on to 6 o'clock. I'm starting to get a little bit of park fatigue. Just because having ridden most of these coasters yesterday, I don't really need a re-ride on a Vekoma SLC, and I don't need any re-rides on, say, a Vekoma MK1200 that only has a corkscrew in it. This park is a bit stuck in time, to be honest, despite it having a couple of marquee attractions. It really needs to figure out what its future is, because I don't know, it's just, from an enthusiast standpoint, it just does not stick out. There's like one ride here worth coming here to try out, and even then it's not even the top of its class in those coasters, that being Goliath. finished a second from back trip on Goliath. It's the fourth I've had in my stay here. I kind of need to get away from the entrances of attractions so you can actually hear me. So I'm not going to have that in the background. So unfortunately we're going to have this concrete structure in the background while everybody watches my review live. So like at the time, 2006, when this ride opened up, it was the tallest roller coaster in Canada. That was a big deal, a huge deal. It still is a great ride. It's not the best B&M out there, that's for sure. It's not technically a mega coaster. So we now have Leviathan, we have a Giga prototype by B&M at Wonderland, which completely knocks this ride out of the park. I do like, when we're thinking about this ride though, however, we have to think about it in context with something like Behemoth, which took its title initially in 2008. The turnaround on Behemoth, while it being the teardrop, was interesting. I like the way that this one has the pretzel weave turnaround on this ride. For some reason I just like it better. I also like those sudden direction changes at the very end of the ride. The end of the ride to me is like the best part, when it has the most speed, it's lowest to the ground, and then you have those sideways, that sideways sort of wing overturn, and then also a completely sideways overbanked turn leading into the final run into the station. The airtime hills in the front are good. Nowhere near as floaty as, say, Behemoth at Wonderland or many other B&M hypers out there. It's a good ride. It's the best roller coaster here. Would I drive 6 hours from Toronto, or 8 hours, or 10 hours, or fly in to Montreal just for this ride? Probably not. There's way more out there that surpassed it since the 13 years of its existence. That being said, in this park, it stands out because it is really the only world-class coaster in the park. Yeah, I don't know. Goliath is what it is. It's pretty decent. It is a B&M. You can't beat that as far as structurally is concerned. It's a very quiet B&M too, and still smooth. But yeah, it's just still like everything in this park, just kind of good enough, but not like outstanding. Montreal is a world-class city, and they kind of deserve to have a world-class park, but the selection of rides here are just not up to it. Now, nothing to take away from Goliath. I think that if this park got another coaster of its scale or larger, then it would actually have a good complement for people, especially enthusiasts, to come out and try. But currently, it's not really up to snuff when it comes down to thrill levels that are on expectation of, say, what Wonderland has to offer now, which is completely ridiculous compared to what they're doing here. Yeah, but nothing to take away from it. It still is the best ride in the park. Is it one of my best B&Ms? Certainly not. I've been on many B&Ms around the world now, so it's definitely not even in my top 20 B&Ms. Taking that into consideration, I'm obviously quite spoiled in the sense of what I've actually experienced in coasters around the world. So if I was just a regular punter coming and riding Goliath, I would think, oh, that's just like unbelievable, outstanding, and that's what I did hear from a lot of people getting off of the ride just today too. So yeah, it's you're definitely not in a bad position to come out here and get it off of your list if you're interested in doing that. If you are interested in the 1-2 punch that is Les Monstres and Goliath, then yeah, you should get out here to at least try them. Hopefully they're both open, and yeah, you can enjoy it for what it is. When it opened, I'm sure, like in retrospect, it was one of the best coasters in the region, but things have definitely changed. So the update, the McDonald's is not actually here anymore, so this is just a McDonald's copy, which is fine with me because the fries seem to be better anyway. More natural. 14 bucks for a chicken burger and fries. It's not bad. Like, I'll take it. To me, it seems like everybody's following me in this park because Goliath had a substantial wait time, 2 to 3 trains for each row. which I haven't seen this entire day. It's getting on past 6:30 now, and it's getting a little bit busier in the park. Maybe it's because school's let out and everyone's decided that do have passes to come and try the park out for a couple hours. Like I said, it's pretty easy to get here from downtown on the public transit system. So it's you want to come and do a couple hours at Ronde, you can easily do that. Which is also a good tip that if you happen to be in the city itself, then yeah, you can spend a couple hours here, get back into Montreal, and do some of the other things that the city has to offer. That being said, I wouldn't say that if you were here on a weekend day that you'd be able to do that, because the lineup for, say, Goliath will be substantial, as I've experienced before. So we're going to go and do Le Monstre, at least try to get one ride on it before it's in it, and then we're going to go off and do the other side of the park, where Titan and Condor are, and get that done as well, since I haven't covered those yet today. I should also point out the key reason I'm actually here, which is I do have a pass for Seasons Pass for Le Ronde, a gold pass that I got yesterday. You have to come to the park to collect it, and that's what I've done, because it will allow me to get into 13 Six Flags parks over the year. Now that being said, the price, the deal that I got was, I believe, $60 Canadian for a gold Seasons Pass to get me into any Six Flags park. That's like 45 American. That is an unbeatable deal. So if you want to do it that way and get yourself extra value, then you can't really beat that. It is like, they do a lot of specials on the Seasons Passes here at the end of the year for renewals, etc. So if you're looking for the best value and you can make it down here and you have a plan on going to other parks, then there's just no other place that you should start at, because it's really like almost half price compared to the other parks. And yeah, you get all those VIP perks as well. Now, fortunately, once you get that pass, you don't have to come to Le Ronde again, because I don't think I will be. At least if I'm in town, I may spend a couple hours here. But I'm not planning any trips coming back to this park. In fact, I probably won't be coming back to this park unless they have a heavy investment next year. Because yeah, there's just no point. Like it gets a little bit boring after a while. And given like how the crowds are here, they've been way better behaved than they were, say, yesterday. Yeah, you're just gonna get Le Ronde out, and you don't really want that from your theme parks now, do you? So just finished Orbit. You know, it's got no accent, so it's Orbit. And not a bad little shot, space shot tower. Nowhere near as good as the one at Marineland, which I just have now said is the best one that I've ever ridden. Even better than the one in Cedar Point. But just behind me is the structure that's left of the original log flume that was here in 1967, built by Aerodynamics. One of the only log flumes ever built by Aerodynamics as well. So it's kind of tragic that it's gone, but I do like the fact that they've kept the lift structure here as like a homage to the original ride that used to be here. To be honest, I think that while the maintenance issue the maintenance issues that probably existed with that ride and the reasoning for why they got rid of it made it necessary for it to be closed. This park definitely, I think, would still appreciate a log flume, because it's just one of those kind of parks that they seem to be into all types of rides, subtle or extreme. I would like to see both ends in this park. I want to see something just ridiculous roller coaster wise to be the next thing that debuts here, and then beyond that, something like a dark ride would be an excellent addition. I know they have this Maison Rouge attraction, which I have not been able to find, but we're going on something else that's family oriented now, which is this Perla madness behind me. getting some serious work done in this last hour, so front and back again, and a nice POV there. Hopefully, I don't actually know how it turned out, but maybe it did. My last encounter with my bird friend. We'll meet again. It wasn't a bad encounter that time. And also, I said that super disco ride was a Huss, but it's actually, a Zamperla, because there's so many Zamperlas in this park, but it's actually a Huss ride from 1986. It was pretty decent actually, because if you go the operator, as I kind of did there, on that particular ride, they gave us like twice as long of a cycle and sped it all up again and gave us a really good cycle on it. Titan, got my another ride in on that too. It remains like a ridiculously popular ride. Came here in 2017, so it's only 2 years old, and it is like a top class flat ride. It's the best flat ride that they have in this park, I would say. It's not like super exciting. It's exactly the same as the model that you find at Six Flags Over Texas as well. So for what it is, it's a really good, decent ride. It's way better than the one at Wonderland for sure. Although the one at Wonderland for some reason gives me a lot more of a stomach sensation than that one. But yeah, it was a good ride. So we're going off to the other side of the park. Try to get a couple more rides in on Goliath and Les Monstres. I wanted to do this wave swinger as well, or the sky swing that's right next to me, which I could do, but I'm kind of thinking I should prioritize the credits before anything, because I don't know how long the line for Les Monstres is, so I'll come back and do that another day or another trip if I come back, say, this year, but it's fine. I don't really need to do it too much. It's a family ride, and we focus on coasters here. And yeah, so we're moving on. It's going to be the end of the day. The park is getting a bit more sparse now, as it did last night, so I'm hoping that it's actually not too busy on the other side, and we can get at least 2 rides in each on Les Monstres and also on Goliath. And if there's anything else to spare, I'm going to try to get that secret credit in here too. Maybe beg for it right now. So we'll see how this goes. It's going to be a whirlwind final 45 minutes here. And I will say as well, they close the rides 5 minutes before the park closes. And as per my experience last night, once the park closes, security is here and they want you out. I will say as well that the security presence in this park, not even in a park in China have I seen as much security as I've seen at this particular park. They must have issues that predate my visit here today. For example, back in Fort Edmonton, they got this tower here. If you can see it, there's a little observation spot in the tower itself, of which security actually can watch you from up there too. So if you're up to no good, they're watching. They know what's going on. But so far, I haven't had any issues yet. Not that I'm doing anything wrong. It's just the foals that I'm having issues with. So let's finish off this day at Ronde. Has there been a coaster enthusiast out there? I'm sure there has, although they probably won't admit it, that has had a kid just so that way they can get those junior credits in a lot easier. The voyage, the meal path, or whatever it's called. It's clearly posted before you get right to the entrance that you need a child to get on the ride. So that's 8 out of 9 credits in this park, but I can't get that 9th one until I either come with a realistic looking animatronic childlike dummy, or I have my own childlike thing, that doesn't sound too good, does it? My own beautiful child, so I can get on credits. Welcome to the world. I might even call my firstborn Credit, just to, identify exactly why I decided to take that stab into familyhood. Anyway, so being said that, I said that I didn't really know if this area had any sections, but this is Avenue Adventure, which has some older rides in it, like the Condor behind me. I did one of those in Marineland just last week, which was exceptional. Don't feel the need to do this one today. I'm gonna keep, as much as I wanted to get every single ride in the day, I don't think you can still do that even on a slow day like this at Ronde. To be honest, I'm gonna leave some stuff for the next trip that I have, so that way I can say I have other things that I need to do. But yeah, it's not really feasible that you can, even on a slow day, get everything in if you want to. I guess if you didn't re-ride anything, you probably could, but it's definitely a challenge. During Halloween Haunt, or they don't call it Halloween Haunt here, but their scare event, I'm sure it's much more difficult to get it all in. And I did say that I probably wouldn't come back this year, but I did forget about the fact that, yeah, I do have to come back to do the scare event sometime in October. It's got no weight, so I'm going straight on. I haven't reviewed it yet, so I'm gonna give you that right after this. No access to the parking lot. I can't really get any good off-ride footage of Les Monstres or of Goliath, so we've decided to take matters into our own hands to get you guys some decent footage to enjoy. Time for Moth Mania! All the moths! Woo! Just did Le Monstre for the last ride of the last train of the day. This is actually the day before the vlog, but yeah, it's because this coaster is located next to the St. Lawrence. At this time of night, you have nothing but moths that cover the entire structure. So we were in the front of the train, and we were just basically getting attacked on each airtime hill and the main drop as well, and each turnaround. It was kind of relentless. So added a kind of unique element to the ride. You might want to close your mouth, and if you don't like bugs, do not do Les Monstres at night. Moth time! Moths everywhere! Oh! Moths on it! Attacking the moths! front and back in Le Mans. I could have gotten another ride, but I have 15 minutes left and I need to get to Goliath for one more ride and hopefully the demon, but the dragon, but I doubt I'm gonna get it, but we'll see. I'm gonna try at least. So we're heading straight over there, but I need to sum up my opinion on Le Mans tonight. I've got a lot to say. So I'm fortunate enough that back in my first ever visit to this park, I did actually get to ride this ride as a dueling coaster. It wasn't really timed out that well, kind of like how Gemini runs at Cedar Point. You know, it doesn't always race that well. And with these tracks being built separately, one in 1985 and one in 1986, it's not exactly a racing coaster per se, even though it's pretty close to that. It's nothing like Colossus back in the day, Magic Mountain or anything like that, or even Twisted Colossus today, which doesn't even race as far as I know that much anymore. They run track, they run one track and one car or one train throughout the day. So long queues. I haven't been here on a weekend in a long time, so I'm not really sure if they actually do race it during the weekends when it's busier. I would hope so. But overall, still a great coaster. Like I was thinking like at the beginning of my trip here that was a coaster, especially with Six Flags' relationship with RMC, that it was an ultimate earmark for an RMC makeover. That being said, if it happened, I wouldn't be distraught. It's very unique, the design as it is in itself, with those overbank turns and those weird helixes that they have as part of the structure, and even the fact that the main drop, or the largest drop of the ride, doesn't occur until after two drops initially in the ride. So you got that one sort of like tame one, and you got that turning drop, that curving drop, and then you follow that up with the main drop in the bulk of the structure that's probably about 80 feet or so, which is definitely the best part of the ride, especially with the head choppers and stuff that you get on it. Definitely a great coaster. Second best coaster in the park for sure. Probably, I'll say it. It is the best wood coaster, at least that I've experienced in Canada. So I would be distraught if it goes, because it's been running pretty smooth. Like I had two rides in a row and I don't feel any head rattle like I did on Mindbuster only a week ago. So we're at Goliath now. I've got to make up my mind. Someone's had a bad ride. So here we go. Going on Goliath, I'm going to check the time, make sure I can actually get everything in. We've got 10 minutes. 10 minutes, too risky. As much as I'd like to do the Dragon again, we're going to do Goliath. And with 10 minutes to go, and knowing that they close the ride 5 minutes before the park closes, I have to say that if you're trying to time it out re-ride wise, even though they'll let you re-ride this based on the fact that there's nobody here, essentially in the queue line right now, it takes forever to get to the freaking station. Like, this queue line is massive. There's cattle pit after cattle pit after cattle pit. So because I want a front row ride, at least on this last, I want a front and back, I gotta get in line now because it takes forever to get to the station. And then I gotta get into the line for the front because there's always a lineup for the front seat. And then luckily I'll just be able to hop on from the back, maybe for 2-3 rides, which I'll go for. Couldn't have timed that better because that was the last train, or second last train. The last train's going around now. front seat in Goliath, I'd say I would have preferred to end my day in the back, because I think I prefer the back a little bit more, just slightly. But overall, like I said earlier, it's a great ride. I do need to cover the dragon behind me too, the Intamin Endor family coaster, which it just reminds me a lot of Vogel Rock at F-Telling. Just the detail, with the smoke and the dragons, and just that little bit of care that they've put in to making sure that those interior elements are actually working, and they work well, is fantastic. Oh, is it not refreshing to hear some music that doesn't have Ariana Grande in the background? For once today, that's fantastic. Proper. So yes, I had one review left to do, because every time that I try to get everything in, I'm trying to do my due diligence while I'm here and make sure that you get at least somewhat of a review of each coaster. I'm not going into obvious highly technical details. My channel is really kind of for everyone, for those that want to like get into coastering and traveling around the world and become an enthusiast, or they're just like new to the enthusiast racket. This is what we do. I could bore you with the various terminology of roller coasters and also the slang terms that people have come up with in reviewing coasters, but I'm not really here to do that. It's all about accessibility and just a general overview of the atmosphere of these parks. So yes, going back to the Dragon, one of my favorite family coasters. I love those interior details. I love the fact that everything works, even that puff of smoke that you go through as you enter the Dragon's mouth. As I said, that particular element reminds me a lot of Vogel Rock at F-Telling. It's a great coaster, and this one, I remember being here last year and being disappointed that I didn't get on it, and now that I've gone on it, I'm kind of disappointed that I didn't get on it today. It's kind of silly. It's not like the biggest thrill ride or anything, but it's definitely in the top 5 best coasters in this park. But yeah, if you're going to be here, I would say that's one that you shouldn't miss. Not a crazy thrill or anything, but just a solid ride. Oh, the sweat. What a day. About 3 hours ago, I thought I was going to be leaving Ronde. I was Ronde out. I had a beer, took a little recharge, reset, had a meal. The park cleared out a bit, and we're still here. So, the park's actually closed now, as I said, and we're headed on out. I'm not gonna mess with security as I did. I didn't really mess with them yesterday. They kind of just pushed me out pretty swiftly as I was trying to get that shot that is gonna end this vlog for you. But yeah, we're heading out. Ronde, what can I say? If you have enough time, say a 12-hour day, you'll be able to cover this park. But if you don't, and you just want to do a couple of the major coasters, you can get them in, even on a busy day, within a couple of hours. That would probably be, like, my top 3 priorities are going to be, obviously, the Goliath, obviously, Les Monstres, and the Vampire. It's probably pretty obvious, but if I'm going to add one, I'd probably say, if you've been on a Batman clone, then try out the Dragon, because that was kind of a very fun, family, unique coaster. So yeah, we're all done here. We're gonna go back into the city and have a little bit of a nightcap before I head out of the park, or out of Montreal. One of the best cities in the world, by the way. And I'll probably be seeing you back here again in October for the Haunt event that they have here, to give you an overview of really what it's all about, and hopefully it'll meet the expectations that I've been told, that it's one of the best ones that's going. One lesson I've learned today, in my intro I said that this was going to be one of the most difficult vlogs that I shoot. It has been anything but that. In fact, further from it, I'd say my Lotte World vlog in South Korea, that was definitely up there, as was my vlog from Marineland, which is just recent, which is up now too. So check that one out, even though that went well after all was said and done. So that's a wrap from Ronde. here in Montreal. Second best park in Canada, yes, by default, because it's really like the second largest park in Canada. There is only 2 real significant parks in this entire country. I'm not trying to not do justice to Playland in Vancouver, but I just haven't been there. I'm going to try to change that soon, because it does have a legendary coaster there in its own right. And a lot of people say that is the best wooden coaster in Canada, if not one of the best in the world. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get there anytime soon, but I definitely will try. So I'm going to finish up here going through the park. As I said on the way in, you get to go by the Biosphere and have a nice little shot of the Biosphere at night. The Biosphere, formerly known as the American Pavilion for Expo 67, is basically your beacon for your metro stop on your way back to the city, as the metro stop is located right in the middle of Parc Jean Drapeau, which I would recommend if you are in Montreal. As an aside, this is an excellent spot to have a run. If you want a bigger run, like over 10K, it's exactly 13 kilometers from Old Montreal through this park, across 2 bridges and back, and you come around this this area as well. Or if you want to quit halfway, you can just jump on the metro and go back to town. But this is where you come out to get to the park, and this is where our vlog ends, as I'm about to jump back onto the subway, which is located just down there. So yeah, it's been a good day at Ronde. It has not been without its ups and downs, as I predicted, but it actually overall turned out to be surprisingly enjoyable. I think I just have really gotten too paranoid about the interactions that I would have with people in the park. Not that there wasn't some, but obviously there were some positive ones. I've already summed up what I think about those of you that are traveling from afar to come to this park, if you should, or what you should prioritize if you're here. I would say if you can get here on a slower day, yeah, give yourself some time to enjoy the park, enjoy Parc Jean Drapeau as well, and take in as much. You could get a full day of activities just on this island alone. And if you're into Expo 67 and stuff like that, it's pretty much, you can't miss this place. The fixtures in it are very, awe-inspiring. There's a casino which is on the other side of the island as well. That's just one of the most unique buildings that was built for the expo that they've thankfully preserved, among other things like the Biosphere behind me. But that's wrapping it up for Ronde. I'm going to get on the metro, get back to town, and in a couple hours go home. So it's been a good day. So yeah, that's wrapping it up here from Ronde for 2019. I'm still here with the longest wrap-up ever. Another thing I need to mention though, the metro system in Montreal, which should be another vlog entirely, but this particular station, if you like brutalist architecture, you will just love it here, because it is one of the most gorgeous stations of poured concrete that I've ever encountered. The detail here is just stunning, so I'm going to try to give you a couple of cool shots here of how this place sort of looks. Some may just say it looks like a standard subway station, but I don't think so. I like that weird 70s modernist, late 60s architecture that is in abundance in Montreal, and you get that here. Like in Toronto, the subway system seems a bit more uninspired, whereas here, even though there's a lot of uniformity to the stations, there's a certain amount of beauty in the modernism that you find here. So again, I'm going to try to wrap this up again, but yeah, that's my day at Ronde.